Justice Reign. Chapter 1. When the cop with the cowboy hat and the gut hanging over the belt asked Chris if he had a second, Chris thought, here we go again, even though we're not supposed to be. They were at the Hallmark Left golf course, a pristine 18 holes, sprinklers currently doing their thing all over the place, as opposed to the Hallmark Right 18 holes, which was over the footbridge and across Sunscape Road. Chris's understanding was the left course favored the big hitters, but the right course was technically trickier. This was Eclipse, Arizona, the Rancho Villas Gold Star Residential Living and Resort. Once again. Chris said sure he had a second. What else could you say? The cop asked if he'd heard about the dead body overnight. I have, Chris said. Before we get into that, though, something I've been meaning to clarify. Is there any restriction on watering around here? I mean, you have to transport in your water, right? I hear you, the cop said. All for the snowbirds, on account of which my personal water runs me over $3 a month, Chris said. You bet. Any idea what happened last night? What we got? Meaning back to the body. A woman unfortunately discovered by Jose and Alberto around 5 a.m., driving around with a maintenance truck, adding sand to the sand traps. A foot was sticking out of the Chihuahuan sage bramble near the 11th hole. All's I know, Chris said. I get up, grab a coffee in the lobby on my way to the fitness center. Everyone's on edge. An hour later, we get the word the gal was a prostitute. Allegedly. Everyone relaxes a little. Human nature, the cop said, his eyes following an attractive woman decked out in high-end yoga pants, heading to the next station of the park course workout thing they had paralleling the golf. I guess, Chris said, whenever there's a bad crime where I'm living, in the newspaper or on TV, the first thing I always want to know, was it random? Or was it self-contained? How do you know this one was random? I think you missed my point. I don't think it was random. At least I'm hoping not. I know what you meant, the cop said, unwrapping a juicy fruit gum stick and putting it in his mouth. I'm playing with you. Why do you think it wasn't random? Okay, this was about enough. Chris was rambling like an idiot, mainly because he was relaxed speaking to a cop for once, not worried about being accused of something. Of course, he was Jeff Masters here, and if the guy checked, really ran his name through, that could be an issue. But before the guy got to him, he'd similarly questioned a couple of other golf course employees, and Chris was pretty confident it was routine canvassing, and in fact, so far the guy hadn't even asked him for any name. The employment part being, Chris was working on the noon to 5 shift at Hallmark Left under an awning, checking out golf carts, clubs, driving a modified vehicle around now, and then that scooped up loose balls off the practice range, grabbing beverages from behind the counter for the exhausted golfers, microwaving nacho-type snacks as well. It wasn't bad. $10.50 an hour, Arizona minimum wage, not a penny more, but that wasn't important. Last time he was here, and that would have been January when he found out from Ned in the middle of the night that he possibly needed to be on the run from the authorities, he landed a job passing out towels in the fitness center and actually bartending a few shifts in the Rancho Villas in-house restaurant as well. None of that was available this time, but you wanted to keep busy, and the golf gig was just right now that they were into May, highs in the low 80s, lows in the mid 60s. Perfect conditions to be outside here in the Salt River Valley, surrounded by all the cactus and red rock. Ned had come to him this time, not in emergency mode, but in strong suggestion one, and convinced Chris to take a little break. The transition being, if there was a repeat or escalation of the fallout from New York that involved Ralph and now the Bucks County guy, the tank, Ned said he'd feel better personally if Chris had a little distance on the situation. Meaning, if someone really needs to find you, they will. Chris had learned that for the most part, but don't put it right in their lap, Ned was saying. Chris explained to Ned that he wasn't particularly afraid of another guy showing up, and what he left out was he was more afraid of being apprehended and electric chaired himself for something he might have done, though Ned had him pegged pretty good by now and likely was thinking along with Chris. Ned's point was simply take a little vacation, let's see what happens, and they were in the crow's nest following a somewhat contentious meeting of Finch's writing group where Holly really went off the deep end and with her inciting incident assignment, and even Finch told her to maybe start over. And Holly ended up in tears, and Rosie had to run outside after her and talk her back in. Ned had gotten to the key point pretty quick, though, in the crow's nest, and he looked Chris in the eye and nodded, and there was no act connected to it this time, a rare serious side of Ned. And Chris said he'd think about it, and Ned said he'd be by in a couple hours with some plates. Ned was true to his word, tapped on the door after midnight, handed Chris the license plates, Virginia ones. Chris wasn't sure how necessary that was, and he figured he'd leave his own California plates on for now, but keep a screwdriver in the trunk just in case. And Ned told him to stay safe and don't rush back. And that was it, and Chris was on the road the next afternoon, everything happening pretty fast. He figured he'd start off on I-10 and see what destination ideas might come up, and there were none so far, past Riverside or Palm Springs either, and kind of like a magnet, the Malibu stayed straight and drove itself to Phoenix. At that point, Chris debated it for about 5 minutes, that he had admittedly been active out here last time, but the resort lifestyle sounded good, and really, all you had to do was stay there, right? Meaning don't revisit Scottsdale, don't get involved in road rage business on any county back roads either, and things should be fine. So he rented another condo. It wasn't complicated. This time he used better judgment and leased the thing month to month, unlike last time when he got fancy and prepaid 3 or 4 months up front to save a few bucks, and then got burned by Pat trying to recover it. That was something he was afraid of too, running into her again, and especially having to do business with her. And she was still working here. Her nameplate was on the sales office door, but a friendly new gal explained that Pat spent most of her time these days selling pre-construction units at Phase 3 up the road. So Chris got out of there unscathed, key in hand, Unit 512, an upper one this time. The square footage a little tighter than back in January, but you had a little deck with a view, though it was of the pickleball courts. But overall, fine. And now 2 weeks later, Chris was gainfully employed, and a cop was chewing gum, taking a couple notes, and you could smell garlic in the mix too. And Chris was finishing answering the guy's question. I'm thinking it wasn't random because our manager made an announcement to that effect. What did he say? The cop said. Geez, this guy was good at asking questions, but Chris was starting to wonder if it ended there, that the guy may never have experienced a homicide and doesn't know what to do next. Chris said, He said it was apparently a relationship, which the manager hadn't exactly said. He'd said, hopefully there's nothing to worry about, but same difference, more or less. Well, that's how we're working it, the cop said. You familiar with the Halliday J Express down in Merritt? No, Chris said, though that may have been wrong, too. Dang, that could have actually been the place where he trailed Monica and Kyle and the Kyle guy that time. Small world if it was. But why, he said. They're known for some of that activity? They are. Thing of it is, what's up to us now to put together, did someone dump her there? It seemed kind of obvious to Chris that's what happened, as opposed to a poor girl strolling around the 11th hole of a golf course in the middle of the night and running into trouble. But hey, let the guy do his thing. Anything else? Chris said. Nope, for now that's a wrap, the cop said. And a strange way to put it, and the guy added, these things start out complicated, but they end up going simple on you. And the guy extended his hand and moved on, and Chris noticed a bunch of the maintenance guys now on the patio near the first tee, waiting to be questioned, and Bob, the manager who made the hopefully nothing to worry about comment, sort of supervising. Chris figured he could have set the cops straight on one thing, that yeah, they may start complicated, but they never end up simple. But that would have been way out of line. And meanwhile, when today's golf rental shift was over, you had one of the nice perks of this place, a little Tuesday night social out by the main pool, barbecues going, the whole bit, everything on the house.